Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and then Ryan is RHOLM22 is Ryan's Twitter handle, and the Raiders are continuing to raid. So if you're going to say Chargers, the Chargers are going to charge, we got to say the Raiders are going to raid, I guess. They've been pretty bad, and I think and they're bad on kind of the surprising side of the ball. We thought they would be a lot better on the offensive side of the ball this year. But and I'm not going to put everything on number 4. It is weird to me that the way he plays is your favorite player is Brett Favre, and he plays kind of kind of the anti-Brett Favre, if possible, if you can. This is something we've seen for a long time. I'll let you get in here, Ryan. What are your initial thoughts about Carr and where he stands and where the Raiders might? I guess we have a whole offseason to talk about where they might go next, but he is definitely putting himself in a position where he might be a Raider for life, but not in the way he wants to be.
No, this is the last couple of years have been the prove it year for Derek Carr. We've all talked about that. The team's talked about it, and he hasn't done it. And this year they went out and they got him his best friend in Davante Adams. They got him the true number 1, and to see if he could elevate the team, and he clearly hasn't. This has been statistically probably his second or third worst year of his career, which is interesting based on, having Davante Adams and the league's leading rusher. Let's not forget this team has a dynamite running game. It's not like he's going out there that we're not in the Lamont Jordan days of Raider football where they can't run the ball. Literally they have Josh Jacobs. And I was listening to another podcast this morning and I know a lot of people are talking about McDaniels isn't letting him throw and they're not letting him air it out. Well, these are the same number of attempts he had in, I think, 17, 19, and 20. So this is essentially the same number of attempts we've seen over the last 5 years. And the one thing that I can't stand on Twitter is everyone arguing, well, it's Mandarin. It's a complex system. Like no one can pick this up. Mac Jones picked it up last year as a rookie and I posted these numbers and it's been crickets. No one's commented on it, but the exact same numbers that Derek Carr's putting up this year are the exact same numbers per game basis within give or take 9 passing yards, but same attempts, same completions as Mac Jones put up as a rookie with no weapons around him. Yep. So people can argue all they want until they're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, Derek Carr hasn't played well, and the offensive line has been up and down. But I look around the league every week. There's a lot of offensive lines in this league that don't play well. A lot of them. There's a lot of teams that wish they had a Josh Jacobs and a Davante Adams. The defense, we can talk about it all we want, but the defense is giving up 23.3 points a game. League average is 22. If you just take away the 2 pick sixes and the Renfro fumble, they're exactly 22.0. This defense is giving up league average points. Like the defense isn't good. Let's be honest. Like they don't have a lot of good players. They don't create turnovers. They don't get to the quarterback. But if we're just going to judge them on points allowed, which is what Raider fans have wanted to do they could scream till they're blue in the face because the team has been terrible at it. They're league average. They're 15th. If you just take away the 3 offensive touchdowns that they've given up, you want to put those in because other teams have that happen to them. They're somewhere around like 20th or 21st. So this isn't the worst defense in the league, but the problem is all the assets on this team were put in the offense and people just can't comprehend that the quarterback's not playing well. I don't want to hear about on Twitter people saying, well, this guy's running the wrong route and this guy's doing that. We don't know that. Like we could pull up all the film we want and guess where these guys are supposed to go based on the coverages. We don't know that. We do know the quarterback is completing 60.8% of the passes, which is 29th in the NFL out of quarterbacks with 9 starts and 31st overall. If you just want to throw all the quarterbacks in there, he's 29th. He's 26th in quarterback rating. He leads the league in interceptions. Like there's enough stats going around that he's playing somewhere around the 15th best quarterback. And I don't even want to rank him anymore because there's about 13 quarterbacks in the league that shouldn't even count. Like they're basically rookies, journeymen, guys are throwing in. So if we're going to talk about like the best of the best, the top 15, 16 quarterbacks in the league. He's clearly in the bottom 3 or 4 of that. So the Raiders can move on. They probably will move on. And can they find an upgrade? And I tweeted this too, like the fan gratification upgrade, where the only way you can upgrade is if you get Joe Burrow, or if you go get Josh Allen, or you go get Patrick Mahomes, or you go get Trevor Lawrence, or one of these young. That's not going to happen. So I fully expect if they do move on, they may take a step back for a year or two at quarterback, and I'm okay with that, because I know moving forward, it's probably not going to get any better. This is what Derek Carr has been for 9 years.
Mhm.
So if you think he's magically going to wake up and they're going to win 12 or 13 games and get home field advantage and cruise to the playoffs in year 10, 11, 12, it's not going to happen unless he has a dynamite roster around him. And I just don't see that happening over the next 3 years. And if you just look around the league, and I tweeted this too, if fans want a top 15 offense and a top 15 defense, there's not many of those teams in the league. I think there's 6. When I looked at it, only 2 of them are paying market rate at quarterback. And I threw Josh Allen in that. Technically, Josh Allen's in year 5. So he would have been in his 5th year of his rookie deal. I counted him because of the extension. Next year, that cap hit really jumps, but really it's 1. It's Dallas. They're the only team in the league. And Dallas might not even have a top 15 defense at the end of the day. After the last 2 weeks, they've given up a ton of points. So it's almost impossible. You basically have to pick one side or the other, unless you have a quarterback on a rookie deal that you can build around. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go draft a rookie quarterback in the first round and turn around and win 12 games next year, because that's improbable too. They may win 6 or 7, but if you bring Derek Carr back, you're probably going to win 8 or 9, and you're going to be knocking on the door for the 7 seed. They're not built to compete to beat the top teams in the AFC. And I know people want to say they can beat the Chiefs. Yeah, in a one game setting, they can do it. But the problem is the league's 17 games. You have to play at a high level for 17 weeks, not beat the Chiefs once. So you may knock off the Chiefs once, but I know what's going to happen in Kansas City is they're going to win 12 of the other 16 games and get to 13 wins. That's the Raiders' problem. They can't beat the bad teams.
Yeah, and I would say, and here's where I would disagree with a little bit of Raider Nation. Let me just say this real quick. So I'm going to start at after they lost to Jeff Saturday, which is probably one of the most disgusting things like any coach could say about themselves, that they lost to Jeff Saturday. They played the Broncos 20 points or less, because this was the argument: just give them a defense that scores 20 points or less, and we're good to go. They gave a bunch of points. They gave 34 points to the Seahawks, but Carr also put the defense in some compromising positions, turning the ball over. But okay, fine, whatever. 20 points or less, pick 6 by Derek in against the Chargers. As bad as that last drive was, and it was horrible against the Rams, 20 points or less against the Rams. 20 points or less against the Patriots. 20 points or less against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, the fact that this coach, I would say this coach has something, he has some play in this too, but the quarterbacks, the long list of horrible quarterbacks or first year quarterbacks or quarterbacks making their first start, second start that he loses to, he just lost to a quarterback who has 5 touchdown passes. The defense, even when the defense was playing really, really poorly early in the season, they still got the stop, where if the Raiders just needed a field goal, they could have won those games. And that's where I thought I was told that Derek is fourth quarter magic, mid captain comeback. He creates captain comeback. The Patriot game probably counts as a comeback. Why? Because he was so horrible for 2.5 quarters that let them back in the game. That game should have been 45 nothing. That game was hard. The defense got lucky on a couple of those seam passes where if Mac Jones was on point, maybe it's a big play, maybe it's a drive, but they didn't complete those plays. So I know what Derek didn't complete. I know how he didn't move the football. And everybody talks about sacks and pressures. Last 3 years, 50 sacks, 41 sacks. This year, 27 sacks this year. 27. I know the 2 things that gets really hammered home is the defense and the offensive line. And I'm not saying that the defense or offensive line is going to remind you of, the old 49er teams or some of the old Raven teams defensively, but they have been competitive enough to keep an offense that should be scoring in the high 27, 30 points a game range in ball games. And even when they didn't have Waller, even when they didn't have Renfro, you still had, it wasn't like you were a poor man. You still had Josh Jacobs, like you said. You still had Devontae Adams, who they cannot find a way to get him the football. That is crazy to me. That you have Devontae Adams, your quote unquote best friend, and you can't find the football. All this chemistry from Fresno State. Oh, we're gonna do it again. Bulldog, whatever the Super Bulldog thing is, whatever they say, like they can't do any of that. And I think that's probably the biggest indictment of what I'm seeing here. And the reason why I think that the Raiders can possibly not take a step back if they kind of bring the cast back together and they get a Garner Minshew, or if they get a Garoppolo, or if they get a Brady, is because I'm watching this film and I'm watching these games and I'm saying to myself, if they're just comparable, if they're just competent, if they can just on a 6-yard comeback not throw the ball 15 feet over Devontae Adams' head, like they can move the football against pretty much anybody, and they can actually pretty much be a good team that can contend for a playoff spot. Now, on this show, we look at the big picture. We want more than just playoff. We want a team that can go to a Super Bowl, but you can't win a Super Bowl if you don't go to the playoffs. So, like that's what really bothers me the most is that
get to the playoffs first.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You gotta get to the playoffs first before you get the Super Bowl. So baby steps, and you gotta be a playoff team that gets to the playoff. You gotta be a team that gets to the playoffs consistently. You can't get there like, oh, last year Cincinnati, and then we wait another 7 years to get to the playoffs again. You gotta get there consistently. If they can get there consistently, then yeah. But I think that you get a veteran. I think a veteran free agency is the way to go. If you get a veteran quarterback, you can. I mean, especially guys who played in the system, I think you can get solid quarterback play. I'm not sure what you do with Jacobs. I mean, I don't know how you convince him to come back. Or I mean, actually, you don't. He actually it's on the Raiders to actually convince, because they hold all the cards when it comes to that. But you see what happens there. But like that is what I don't think people understand to the depths of how poorly Derek has been playing. Like, I mean, even the head coach said we won in spite of our passing game. Like, who thought that going into the season?
I think the biggest stat that I saw this week that stood out is in the second halves of games.
Oh yeah,
Derek Carr is completing 55% of his passes, which is the second worst in the NFL, only to Zach Wilson, who was like 54.5%. He's basically been Zach Wilson in the second half of every game this year, on average. So I know the play calling hasn't been great, but like I'm at a point now where Derek Carr is what he is. We know what he is. He's a really good game manager. If you need a guy to go 20 of 30, try to protect the football, keep the ball safe for the most part outside of this year. This is kind of an anomaly with interceptions, but he's not a guy
180 yards.
He's not a guy that's going to take over a game and when things are wrong, make them right. And that's what you have to do in the NFL now. Mm-hmm. He needs perfect blocking. He needs guys to get 2 or 3 yards separation. He won't throw the ball if a guy's never covered. So it's really easy to take away a top option. He'll go to the third or fourth option, and he'll make Zay Jones famous, who, by the way, is being played a lot better in Jacksonville, but we don't want to talk about that. We just want to talk about how Derek got him paid. We want to talk about how we think he got Michael Crabtree paid and ignore that Michael Crabtree was good when they got him. Yeah. Amari Cooper's been better since he left. Jared Cook was good before he got to Oakland. So he made Seth Roberts better. Who cares? He needs to make Devontae Adams good. And I know Raider fans want to say, well, Devontae Adams is having a career. No, he's not. He has like 86, 88 catches. He had 123 catches last year. Like he's got 40 less catches with 2 games to go. Like he can't disappear. You have to find a way to get him the ball. And that's on the play caller too. Josh McDaniels deserves just as much blame. But at the end of the day, those are the decision makers. And I know people hate Josh McDaniels, and I'm not a Josh McDaniels fan by any stretch of the imagination, but he's the head coach. He's going to make the decisions. Dave Ziegler's going to make the decisions. I know Raider fans don't like them because they came from New England, and rightfully so. But at the same time, like, they're going to do the best thing that they think for the Raiders moving forward. And if they decide to keep Carr, I tweeted too, fine. I'm okay with that. But they need a guy that can play within this system. And Derek Carr clearly can't at this point. He's shown that he can't do that. But the whole upgrade, back to that, my tweet was like, the Raider fans want a guy who they believe right now, not the coaching staff, not the front office. They want a clear-cut top 5 quarterback if they want to move on. But I tweeted out 5 names. If you would have asked them before the season last year, they would all said no. They're not better than Derek Carr. Yep. And all 5 of them have played better. A lot of them a lot better. And that'd be Jalen Hurts. And I know a lot of people, you cherry pick those 5 games. I picked 3 guys with a new coach, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence was the first pick.
Yeah.
And Jared Goff has a new offensive coordinator. It's not a new head coach, but they're running a new system there. And they changed that in the, like, third or fourth week of this season. And he's having a great year. And then you want to look at Jalen Hurts as a second-year guy, and Geno Smith hadn't played in like 7 years, and they're all outperforming Derek Carr, and they don't have Devontae Adams. They don't have Josh Jacobs on those rosters. So I know Derek Carr is if he's in a situation, I absolutely think he can take a team to the playoffs, but he needs a team with a top 5, top 7 defense. He needs a team that has a top 5 running game. He needs a team with multiple options at wide receiver, because he's proven time and again that he's just not going to throw the ball and risk it when there's double coverage, and he'll immediately look away from those targets. He's done it for 9 years. But a lot of people want to say, well, Derek led them to the playoffs last year. I'm just going to go through this, how many points they scored in games down the stretch last year. So let's dispel that myth. They beat Cleveland 16-14. Again, the weather, that was the Garoppolo game, wasn't a great weather game. But then the next week, they beat the Broncos 17-13. So these aren't offensive shootouts where Derek Carr put this team on his back and got them to the playoffs. They beat the Colts 23-20. And then he had a good game against the Chargers. They won 35-32. And in the playoffs, they lost 26-19. They scored 23 once, 35 against the Chargers, and were under 19 points in the other 3 games. So it's not like he was playing at an MVP level, and he's the reason they made the playoffs last year. There was a lot of things that went into that. But it's okay to look at him and say, yeah, this guy, he deserves to be. Is he one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league? No doubt. He is one of the best 32 quarterbacks. He is a starter in this league. But your division has Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And the goal should be to win a Super Bowl and win a division. Yes. And you're not going to do that with Derek Carr. And the bigger picture to me, and I think the front office may have figured this out in Pittsburgh, is he can't play in the cold weather. I know the team, we could say, well, the team wasn't very good. Foster Moreau dropped that pick, but he was way off target. It was bad. And the fact that where they're at now, if you keep Derek Carr, like, to think that you're ever going to just win this division and win 13 or 14 games without a career-ending injury to Patrick Mahomes, they're probably not winning this division in the next 2 or 3 years. With Derek Carr at quarterback. And they may not win it with whoever they bring in other than Derek Carr, but maybe they'll find out if they can or not. But you're going to have to go on the road. Look around the AFC. Kansas City's going to cold weather. They're going to be good for a while. Buffalo's going to be good for a long time. They have Josh Allen.
Bengals.
Joe Burrow's in Cincinnati. They're going to be good. Lamar Jackson comes back. He's healthy. Baltimore's going to be good. Cold weather. Just unless Jacksonville somehow becomes like one of the best teams in the league, and you get to go on the road and play in Jacksonville in January, they're going to have to figure out how to win in cold weather. And Derek Carr's proven time and again he's not that guy. But the question is going to be, how are they going to handle that contract? Because I got a lot of questions on how they're going to do that, and the timing of this is very interesting. And I do question why Dave Ziegler put that time frame in. I'm assuming it was Carr's agent, and if he did, it was a smart move by the agent to make it so close to the Super Bowl. Because basically they have to make a decision. If they do pick it up, which I think they will pick up the contract, and then they can't find the proper trade partner. They can't release him at that point because the money guarantees, and they'll take a huge cap hit. So if he calls their bluff and doesn't agree to a trade prior to that, which they can't trade him till the first day of the new league year anyways, which is like middle of March, but they can agree to something prior to that. We saw Stafford Goff trade happen the week of the Super Bowl. And Derek Carr is going to be picky. He may not even want to get traded. He may walk away, but we can throw the Jets. We can throw some teams out there. Do you think Derek Carr is going to agree to a trade to go play for a team in cold weather? I don't think he will. I think he's going to narrow it down to a dome. Maybe it's Indianapolis dome. Maybe it's New Orleans dome.
And this is
Tampa. Yeah. He's going to be really selective if he does decide to leave the Raiders.
And then this is the first year where, can you imagine Derek Carr? Like, this is the first time the media in Vegas has really asked Derek Carr hard questions, right? The first time. Can you imagine? I have sat through many of Yankee and New York Giant press conferences and seen those living on the East Coast. I cannot imagine. It's on me ain't going to fly in New York. They are going to destroy you if you try to say it's just on you. That's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. And I think, to me, like, would you not? Why would you not just ride with Mike White until you find somebody? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's been their best option at quarterback. He took an injury. But I mean, they don't need much at the quarterback position. They're that talented defensively. They really are a good defensive team. So we'll see what happens there. I just think the biggest thing for me is just the fundamentals of all of it. Like, I got a good friend of mine, Sean Hillebrand. He's on Twitter a lot, and I used to do a podcast with him, and he talked about, like, the baby oil offense, right? Every offseason you see him in in the desert, throwing to his teammates. Big, I got the arms out, baby oil, looking all fresh, no arms, whatever. Arms are out, sun's out, guns out, and it looks great. The optics of it look incredible, but when the game starts, like the first quarter of these games starts. I mean, I don't know what the stat is about the car in the first quarter, especially in home games. I gotta go look it up because it seems like he just like it's hyperventilation time, and the game doesn't start until they're down 10-0. So, or he throws a pick or throws a pick six or whatever. So that is a problem. And the fundamentals of the footwork, like everything you just look at, like some of these throws are like, how could they possibly be successful if you're not doing that from a 9-year vet, being having proper footwork and what are you practicing in the offseason? You come from a quarterback family, all those things like that bothers me as well. So a lot of things are crazy, and everything we're talking about isn't like our feelings about Derek Carr. It's about, these are factual things you can look up. Solo Lopez, the Solo Lopez on Twitter. Derek Carr has 47 touchdown passes in the last 2 seasons combined. He also has 45 interceptions plus fumbles in that same time frame. So for every touchdown, you're getting a fumble. For every touchdown, you're getting an interception. Like, he's turning the ball over that much, where like, you might as well have a rookie there. You might as well have another guy there, because like, and maybe with some upside, because he's not doing it.
I think the biggest thing is you have to take the emotion out of it and look at just look at the raw numbers. Like, essentially, he's one of the least accurate quarterbacks in the league this year.
Yes.
And he offers you zero mobility. So if the line doesn't hold up, he can't create anything in space. Like, if you're going to have a guy that's a low completion percentage guy, at least be a guy that can get out of the pocket, make plays, pick up some first downs, be a dual threat guy. And he's not doing that. So if you're going to be a pocket passer where you're basically a statue, you need to be one of the top completion percentage guys in the league to be able to hold up to do that. And if this is how the Raiders are going to run the offense, and maybe this is an indictment on Josh McDaniels, if they're going to run a lot of heavy personnel and they want to pound the rock and they want to be a physical run first team, you don't need to pay Derek Carr. You need to get a quarterback who can understand the defense, change the plays on line of scrimmage, and figure out, all I have to do is figure out how to get the ball to number 17. If I can turn around and hand it off to 28 if he's back, and figure out how to throw the ball to 83 and 17 when 83 and 17 are on the field, that's all you need to do to be successful. This isn't an offense where, and Tom Brady, the same way, like towards the end of his career, like he wasn't just airing it out every week and throwing the ball 50 times. They ran the football in New England. So maybe that's outdated. Maybe fans want to see a more exciting, explosive offense. But if Josh McDaniels, and by all accounts, he's going to stay around, if this is what he's going to do, then why pay the quarterback $40 million? Especially, it's clear that he's lost confidence in Derek Carr. And I get it. The people that love Derek Carr are emotional about it, and they hate Josh McDaniels. So to them, it's like, not only did we hire Patriots guys to come in and ruin this thing, now I'm going to lose my favorite player because of the coach I don't like. But if you're a Raiders fan, you have to look at it. If this is the coach, then let him do everything he can to try to make this thing right. So why beat your head against the wall again in year 2? And then you move on, and then it's another coach. So then they're going to cry, well, that's another coach. And another thing I keep saying, he's had 7 head coaches. No, he's had 4 regimes, which is a lot. But going from mid-season changes, going to the interims, Antonio Sperano and Rich Bisaccia, it's the same system. So like, they didn't change their systems in the middle of the season. So those aren't new. But look around the league. There's 5 or 6 teams with first-year head coaches that are still in it and have a chance to go to the playoffs. I don't buy that. Well, no one else can pick up this offense, because like I said, Mac Jones put up the same identical numbers last year that Derek Carr's putting up this year. Maybe Derek's hurt. He could be hurt. We don't know about it. His footwork's been sloppy. He's had a back injury. He's had the wind knocked out of him at least twice in games. And maybe he's playing with some sort of injury we don't know about. And he's gutting it out. And if he is, good. And good for him. We appreciate it as Raiders fans. We don't dislike the guy as a person. We just want to win football games.
Yeah.
And we know the rest of the roster needs a ton of work. This isn't, it's all Derek's fault.
Yeah.
Derek is not the problem, but he's also not the answer.
That is true. He's not the answer. He's not AI. The most, and then not to let Josh McDaniels off the hook, the most losses by Raider coaches when leading by 7 points at halftime. Go down this list. This is from Josh DeBow, our good friend, of course. And Art Shell, 6 in 108 games. Didn't realize he was up a lot by 7 at halftime. Our show. Let's see, John Gruden 5 times in 117 games. Tom Flores 5 in 136 games, and Joe Bugle 4 times in 16 games. And then for Josh McDaniels, it's 5 in 15 games. So, I mean, he may look at this and try to spin it as, hey, you know what? I'm playing with one arm behind my back because I have this guy at quarterback. Again, this was your choice, young man. So this is what you signed up for, because you signed up for Derek Carr. You did not, you didn't have to, but you did. So you could have walked into that building and said, hey, listen, I gotta do what Reggie McKenzie did. I gotta do what some other coach. I gotta start from scratch, and that would have been the hard truth. You probably wouldn't have got the job, but at least you wouldn't have all these L's on your record. That's already not a good record as it is, and you be in New England and all that stuff like that. So, I also have a lot of questions about like everything this whole offseason. When we go back and examine it, it's gonna be really a bunch of horrible decisions by this team, including the 5th-year option, including this contract with Carr. So Josh McDaniels has some explaining to do himself. I want to go back to the
Chandler Jones
paying him. You could have gotten a lot of depth with the money you paid Chandler Jones. I want to go back to the Carr contract. If they want to move, so like the date is the date after the Super Bowl.
It's 3 days after the Super Bowl.
3 days after
it's like the February 15th.
So when this free agency, the new league year starts later on, obviously.
It's usually like March 10th or 12th, something around there.
So they could do like you said, the Matthew Stafford thing and have that already set in place. That's
what they're going to have to do.
Like they're going to have to do. So
if they want to move on.
If they want to move on.
And want compensation. And Derek has to agree to it too, because he could just say no.
So is he trying to do? So the only spots we're talking about are like New Orleans, where like if you put the numbers up against career numbers against Andy Dalton, I mean, are you really? Is that
they're identical?
They're identical. So is that
4 years younger and costs 3 times as much?
I mean, and then you're talking about a guy who, like, I mean, could him and Dennis Allen. I mean, that would be like good old times again. I mean, Tampa Bay. Would they want that? Would they want that quarterback if Tom Brady stepped away or went to another team? Like that's a possibility. I mean,
who's the coach in Tampa Bay? I don't know if Todd Bowles is coming back.
I don't know either. That's a big issue. I mean, that's a big issue too. So I think we're also going to see a lot of coaching changes because this was a coaching thing that was weird to me. If you go back and rewind to the start of the season, and you see David Carr on football on NFL Network and all these guys from in the Carr camp, they love this move to get Josh McDaniels. They loved it. So now, like how do they kind of spin off and change this around now? Because this was the guy you really wanted to be a head coach.
Yeah, it's tough. I could see Tampa, like you said, as a destination. I could see Atlanta at the Falcons. If they think that they can win with the pieces they have and they're a quarterback away, I could see that being enough. We don't know if Arthur Smith's going to still be there. The problem is the teams that probably need him the most are outdoor cold weather teams: Washington, the Jets, and a couple other teams on the East Coast. What do the Giants do at quarterback? Do they want to bring back Daniel Jones? Do they want to get in the Derek Carr sweepstakes? But Derek has to be willing to go there, and that's why the timing of this, as you said, is important. Because they have to have this done by February 15th. They can't get to February 16th and pick up Derek's contract and then try to trade him and then have him start saying no. Because once that contract vests and that $40 million becomes guaranteed, I think it's 33 for 2023 and 7.5 for 2024. And you can't trade him at that point. You can't release him because all that money is now guaranteed. You're taking a $40 million cap hit instead of a $5 million cap hit. So this all has to be worked out in the next roughly 6 weeks. They have to get Derek to agree. I mean, Derek may say these are the 3 or 4 teams. Arizona would be ideal, new coach coming in, but they can't get out of that Kyler Murray contract. It's $60 million in dead money. And if you just look back at the last offseason, all those quarterbacks that sign big deals, every one of those teams regrets it. Arizona regrets it. You can say Denver definitely regrets it. Oakland or Las Vegas at this point probably regrets some of the clauses in that contract. Maybe not the way it was structured, but definitely the no trade clause is really it could cost them potentially getting compensation if they do want to move on. Ask me if Cleveland is happy about that the way Deshaun Watson's played with all the draft picks they gave up. So these teams that are going out there and trying to find that veteran make it really hard. The real way to do this, and I think this to me as a Raider fan, the one thing that you're always excited, you want to win the next year. We're going to win it next year. We're going to the Super Bowl. Now Davis was always that way. Just try to stockpile as much talent as you can, and then when it backfires, you never really rebuild properly. You never really tear it down, build up the roster, go find that quarterback, be bad for 2 or 3 years, get top 5 picks, and really try to turn it around. You're always trying to put Band-Aids all over the place, and that's where the Raiders are right now because of the Davante Adams trade. And I love Davante Adams. I like the trade, but looking back on it, they probably should have tore this thing down a couple of years ago. John Gruden should have tore this thing down even more back in the day, but they're stuck right now. The worst place you can be in this league is a 7 to 8 win team paying top dollar to an average quarterback, and that's where they're at.
Yeah, Gruden should have tore it down and had somebody else pick the players. And
they never should have hired Gruden, honestly. And I'm a huge John Gruden guy, but that was a disaster.
It was a disaster, absolute disaster, in every possible way. And whether or not that wasn't really the fairest situation, even though he should have said what he said. But for them to leak out just one little part of that was not cool. But like at least it would have been. I mean, it's a bad situation. I feel like they're in a position where if they can just find a quarterback to pivot to, and then if they lose these next 2 games, which they're not going to be favored to, and I would be even in a game that the Chiefs probably don't need.
They need it for the number 1 seed though to get that bye.
Yeah, who did Buffalo play? Who does Buffalo play last 2 games? Is there a losable game for them in the last 2 games?
I think it's New England and Miami.
Oh, in Miami.
But they won't know by kickoff of the last game.
Like
if they both win next week,
it
could come down to the last week. The Chiefs aren't going to sit in everyone and potentially lose to the Raiders to get the number 2 seed. If they win and get the number 2 seed, that's what happens. But unless they lose this week and Buffalo wins, if they both win this week, Kansas City's not sitting anybody that last week.
They're not.
And Andy Reid's not going to do it anyways. They don't.
He would. Yeah, I was going to say he knows how much it means for his team to.
They may take him out at halftime if they're up by 17 points.
The way Andy Reid coaches, they could play whoever at quarterback and still find a way to beat the Raiders.
I would add the one thing we don't know here is we don't know the conversation that Josh McDaniels and Mark Davis are having. I know as Raider fans, we'd all have to like Josh McDaniels. We'd like to see them move on. How do we know that this new front office hasn't already sat down with Mark Davis and said, look, like obviously we came in, here's our assessment of the roster. It's not good enough. We need to improve at all these spots, including quarterback. We want to go in this direction. We want to get a young developmental quarterback. Maybe we take a guy in the first round. We need 2 or 3 more years to get this going. And how do we know Mark Davis hasn't already said yes to that? Because Mark Davis wants continuity. The worst thing he can do, and I know he's probably embarrassed by the way the season went as the owner, but if he really believes in continuity, he's going to give these guys more than next year, unless they go like, let's say they go and get a veteran quarterback and win 3 or 4 games, and probably it pivots. But if they've already gotten assurances from ownership that if they want to go with a younger quarterback, build up the rest of the roster and take another 2 or 3 years, then Mark Davis hasn't already told them that they can do that. I'm not so sure that they're in trouble next year unless it completely backfires and Mark Davis puts an ultimatum they have to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I think that the next two games where that stadium's going to be filled with 49er fans.
It's going to be 80% Charger or 49er fans will be my opinion.
It's going to be so basically it's going to be red 2 weeks in a row, and every time they make a first down, every time McCaffrey does anything, anytime Fred Warner has a PBU or interception, it's going to be like they're playing in Santa Clara or playing in Arrowhead. That is really going to be an issue for Mark Davis.
I don't think it is, as long as the money keeps rolling in. I don't think it's going to bother him that much.
You have to win. Yeah. I mean, you want to win, but maybe for Mark, it doesn't matter if they win or not, because the money keeps rolling in. I mean, but you have to they haven't won in so long. Like you gotta start winning games. And I just feel like they can. I'm not trying to do the Mark Davis. I mean, do the my Mayock and Gruden and keep pushing my problems to the next year. But I just feel like if they sign one of the three quarterbacks I talked about, I really feel like they're going to be a better team than they were this year offensively. And then if you spend the draft and the draft could be, I mean, if they lose the next two games, are they going to be a top five?
I think the highest they can get is like
Six,
7. The
seven.
problem is there's a lot of teams with 4 wins that would have to win out, but then it would come down to
Yeah.
strength of schedule, and the Raiders' strength of schedule, it looks good now, but now you
Yeah.
have to throw the 49ers and the Chiefs record onto
Yeah,
that. It's only going to
exactly.
get worse.
It'll get worse.
I think the highest they can get is 7 or maybe 8. Like they're not going to be in the top 5.
Yeah. So all depends. Like the quarterbacks get overdrafted. I'm hearing Raider fans say they don't want the kid from Kentucky. If they get, I'm burning my jerseys if they do. Like whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. But I would go out there and get a veteran, and then one of the three guys I mentioned, and then draft a quarterback, and then just take it from there. Because I think the longer you push off, if you get a young quarterback, and then you set up for that season, that winning season, kind of like the way the Raiders were built under McKenzie, kind of like just build, and then you set up for that. Okay, we made some strides in 2015, and then we go 2016, and we're doing great, and whatever. You're setting up a lot for that one season, and then if you do have something goes wrong in that one season, like it did that year, then you kind of, I don't think the team has ever recovered from, I don't think the organization's ever recovered from that. They never recovered from that. And I feel like also, I think talk about continuity. I think he was chasing Gruden so bad. I think, and I'm not in love with Del Rio, but I do think he probably kind of deserved at least another year to finish it, to see how that would go in 2018. If you bring that team back, I mean, because I think he did win, he did change the facilities. He did help do all those things. He also won some games as well too. They were a tough physical team under him. So we'll see. But I mean, I know the route I would go. We'll see what the route they go. But like you said, I mean, could they actually survive if their record is this, if this record is the same this time next year and we're doing the show? Is that enough to keep them, to keep people, to keep that brass there?
It might be. I mean, it depends on what
How it
ownership
looks.
is talked about.
How
I mean,
it looks.
who's playing quarterback? Is it a rookie? Did
If it's
Devontae
a
Adams
rookie,
get
then
did Devontae Adams get hurt? Like, we'd have to see everything that played into it. But the problem with turning everything over every 2 years, and we just saw it, like we thought there was building blocks here. The new regime came in and said, nope, we're getting rid of every one of these guys. And 80% of this roster is brand new this year because they got rid of all the depth that we thought there was on this team.
yeah.
What do you think that if you go another year and then you go get a new regime, they're going to get rid of all the players from this year and the next draft. And then you're in this constant cycle where the systems are changing. Like at some point, they just have to say, this is the coach, these are the systems, give it 4 or 5 years, let them develop the players, whether we like it or not. Otherwise, that's why this organization has not been successful, because they just keep turning everything over every 2 years. And the new staff wants new players, and they don't like the Alex Leatherwoods. Now, whether Alex Leatherwood's good or not, I don't know. He's probably not. But there was no reason to move on from him. They could have kept him on this roster, not played him, developed him, and thrown him out there instead of Haranis Garasu the last 2 weeks.
What was the rush?
That was an organizational decision.
What was the rush?
Because the new regime didn't draft him.
What was the rush for moving on from Keyshawn Nixon?
I don't know.
What was the rush? Like, well, why? He's not better than half the guys in this secondary right now.
I mean, Trayvon Mullen. I mean, I know he didn't play a lot with Arizona, but the Dallas was like, give me Trayvon Mullen the minute he hit the market, the waiver wire. I'll take him. Like, you can't keep him as a fourth string corner. Like, you're running out street free agents out there. You have 4 undrafted rookie free agents on the field, and that's how it's going to be if you keep turning everything over. And I honestly think if they go like 6 or 7 wins next year and it looks better and there's better progress, that you could probably see these guys stay around, especially if that young development quarterback's in place and he's playing.
Yeah.
If it's a stopgap, and you're probably right, it's going to be the quarterback on this team next year is probably going to be Jimmy G, Jacoby Brissett, Tom Brady, or throw in option D. It's one of those. Like maybe Baker Mayfield, whether we want to like him or not. I would prefer not to. But it's not going to be an instant fan gratification. This guy's better than Derek Carr. And we have to be okay with that, because hopefully they build the rest of this roster around that. But I could clearly seeing it be Jimmy G. But if the Raiders are also going to draft a quarterback too, and probably in the first or second round, like
does Jimmy G want to do that again?
miss me with the take the quarterback in the 5th round. We're going to develop him, because in the history of the NFL, the chances of that working are basically none. I know people can rattle off, well, Tom Brady was a 6th rounder, or Russell Wilson was a 3rd rounder, or this guy was a 4th rounder. But then name me the other 4,000 guys that win those rounds that did nothing, because statistically the odds of that happening, it's a first round is probably 50% success rate, and everyone knows that. And second round, probably a little better, probably in the low 40s, high 30s. And then after that, it's not even a coin flip.
Hey,
it's
Ryan,
like 1 in 100.
How come nobody rattles off the hundreds of quarterbacks who've drafted in the second round or later, who have never done anything in the league? But they'll bring up Tom Brady, they'll bring up Jalen Hurts, they'll bring up all those guys like that, but they never bring up the guy. It's probably more. It's hundreds of guys.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of guys who've never been anything but holding the clipboard. But we forget those guys. We don't bring those guys' names up. It's
and I think too, going back to McDaniels and the system, I had a bunch of people tweeting at me this year, the system sucks. Really? The system won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, arguably they had the best quarterback of all time. That played a lot into it, but it's not like this is the Tom Walsh bed and breakfast offense.
Yes.
And even if it was, you still have Devontae Adams on the field, 17 somewhere. He's played in every game last time I checked. And number 28's been in the backfield of league's leading rushing. So there's a lot of problems on this team. This team probably, and the schedule couldn't have been easier for them this year, looking back at it. And Raider fans all over Twitter yesterday, oh, the Chargers had a cakewalk to the playoffs. Look at their schedule. Okay, I got news for you. You basically play 14 of the 17 games are the exact same on the schedule, pretty much. So I don't know where the Raiders are going to go from here. I really think they're probably going to move on at quarterback. And when Vinny B and Hondo and all those people start reporting it in the last day or two that they are going to move on, Vic's kind of been hinting at that for 4 to 5 weeks now. The writing's on the wall. And if Jared Stidham plays this week, then you really know it's on the wall. Because if Derek Carr gets injured in these last 2 games, that money becomes guaranteed. And then they can't get out of the contract. Only way they can is to trade him. And he has to agree to that. So, I know the Carr fans out there are probably chomping at the bit for Jared Stidham to run out there, because San Francisco is going to swallow him up and spit him out. The Chiefs might do the same thing, and then they'll point, well, this is why we need to keep Derek Carr, but it's much bigger than that.
I mean, I guess there was a story a long time ago where he walked up to Greg Olson and talked to Greg Olson, and Greg Olson basically had to convince Derek Carr to continue playing because he was going to go follow his path and his faith. So, kind of similar to what Napoleon Kaufman did, whatever. So you just kind of throwing that out there. Like, that is a possibility that they walk into the room and say, hey, Derek, we're going to move on from you being the quarterback of the Raiders. And where do you want to go? And he says, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go follow my faith. And I think that's a possibility with Derek Carr. I don't think it's impossible to see that take place. We've seen people kind of retire beforehand. That would kind of be on brand with his once a Raider, always a Raider type deal. So we'll see.
I would add too, I think Josh McDaniels has an ego. Let's be honest. Like most professional athletes and coaches have an ego. How do you think he feels in every press conference when Derek Carr plays badly? He goes, I'm just doing it where Josh is telling me to go. Yeah. Josh told me to do this. Josh told me to do that. Yeah, if I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm like, you're the quarterback. You make the decisions. You read the defense. You throw the ball where it's supposed to go. Like, why do you keep throwing me under the bus every week?
Yes. I mean, it is does Derek know that he's throwing his coach under the bus when he does that? Like he is throwing the bus. He's throwing him under the bus completely when he does that. Like, I mean, this is this is the guy who you, your brother, and your family were lauding about. Like, this is the guy we wanted to be our head coach. So now you don't want him to be your head coach? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's easy. And Tom Brady, I was listening to him the other day. Like, when you lose, it's all on the quarterback. Just go up to the podium and say, I need to play better. I didn't do this. I didn't do that.
Exactly.
Derek Carr hasn't done that. Like, it's always something else. Like, I've never heard Derek Carr stand out there other than it's on me, which he's never said, I need to play better. This is on, like, this loss is because I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Like, it's always everything else. And golly jucks this and golly jucks that. Like, yeah, I don't know. And I know that's probably reading too much into it, but Josh McDaniels, if I was the head coach and my quarterback keeps saying that every week, that would bother me.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. And not to mention, like, Rodgers and Brady have not played well this year, and they have more wins. And they
Aaron
don't
Rodgers is going to win more games without Devontae
with
Adams, and
Daniels
Derek Carr is going to win with
with
him.
him. And not to mention, he did you sprinkle a little Hunter Renfro, sprinkling a little Foster Moreau. One thing before we
And
go,
Darren Waller, Foster
there,
Moreau's been not good the last
no,
couple
no,
of years.
I meant to say something about Foster Moreau. That's why I brought his name up. I am really distraught and annoyed that I keep looking at the snap count, and this week especially, like what are we doing with Foster Moreau playing more snaps than Darren Waller? Like, what are we trying to prove here? Like, you don't have Aaron Hernandez and Gronk. This is not even Steven. This is one player is a guy you pay for, you paid money for. He's a dynamic offensive weapon. You saw the crazy cash that he made in the Pittsburgh game in the cold, sleeveless. Like, he's ready to go. Like, he's a very difficult cover for most people in the National Football League. And I just don't understand what we're doing here with this whole. He's not least. The old tight end for the Raiders was it Lee Smith? Was that old tight end for the Raiders?
Blocking tight end, yeah.
Yeah, blocking tight. He's not a blocker like him. Like, if he was a blocker like him, then I could see maybe on run plays you want to do it. I mean, his run play. I mean, his face mask penalty was a gigantic part of this game. I mean, he could have just the edge was sealed. You just got to get in the guy's way, get your hands down, and block him the right way. But I mean, I know you and I talked about it before, but why are we seeing 87 play way more than 83? It drives me crazy.
That's a good question. Maybe they just want to get him through the season healthy, and they don't want to push it, and they don't want to re-aggravate those injuries. But playoffs were still inside at that point the last 2 weeks, and Hunter Renfro hasn't played a lot either. So maybe they're more injured than we're led on to believe, or maybe they haven't been in the offense for such an extended period of time that they just feel comfortable playing Keelan Cole and Foster Moreau. But whatever the decision is, that's Josh McDaniel's decision, the position coaches, and we can argue till we're blue in the face. But I agree. I think Darren Waller should be out there 90% of the snaps if he's healthy.
Yeah.
If he's not, he's not. But we'll see. And I have one last question for you. What are the odds? What are the percentages that you would say that both Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs are not on this roster next year?
Percentage?
Would you say greater than or less than 50% that they're both gone?
They're both gone. I would say they. I think one of them will be here. I don't think both are going to be gone. I don't think they both are going to be.
I could see a path where they're both gone. I don't agree with it, but
yeah,
maybe they. I mean, if you keep Jacobs, it's going to cost you $15 or $16 million, and they've run him into the ground so much this year. Let's assume you keep him and you do the same thing next year, and you give this guy 600 touches over 2 years. He's going to be broken down. Like, no one withstands that.
Who's the running back from the Patriots again? Who's going to be a free agent?
Damian Harris.
So I mean, and they have Ramondre Stevenson, and they don't pay anybody. So that would be probably his replacement, I think, if they did that. But I mean,
and then you just mix in the other guys too. Like, obviously, at some point, Zamir White and Britton Brown are going to have to play.
Yes.
But that's a significant amount of money to pay a running back. And Josh Jacobs, I would love for Josh Jacobs to come back. I love Josh Jacobs, but with the way that they're going to operate, if they truly want to go get that bridge quarterback and build up the rest of this roster, you can't spend money on a running back.
You got to go. And I keep having, and then I know they don't spend money like that on running backs, but I keep having these images of him in the Chief uniform. I know they don't usually do it, but like that would be just
Buffalo.
Buffalo would be perfect for him. Buffalo would be perfect for him. All right, Raider Nation. I wish we had better news for you, but we got to tell like it is as far as it goes. So keep listening. Thank you for joining us here, and also subscribe, all that stuff, and get those alerts so when we post a new show. Anything else you want to before we go?
No, I'm still waiting for the all 22. Like you said, David Carr must have erased it because I can't find it. It'll be out in the next couple of days.
Is it not out yet?
As of last night, it wasn't. No.
The game was Saturday. That's crazy.
So maybe the NFL films people took the weekend off too. So I'll look at it. I haven't looked today, so I'll check it right after this.
All right, Ray Nation. Take care. Peace.
All right.